Nothing is more heartbreaking than watching bright children struggle in school because they learn differently than other children. I have treated countless numbers of children who have suffered from undiagnosed learning disabilities such as dyslexia and have fallen through the cracks of our educational system. Now is the time, and the time is now, to make a difference in the life of your child and open the door to a successful future. If your child is struggling in school, contact me for an evaluation today. A learning disability is a neurologically based disorder that affects one or more of the basic psychological processes in either using or understanding language, whether it is spoken or written. It typically manifests itself in the imperfect ability to listen, speak, think, read, write, spell, or do mathematical calculations. Dyslexia is a type of a learning disability, which is also neurologically based, and it's also language based. Typically, children with dyslexia have difficulty with word recognition, but more importantly, with insufficient phonological processing. In other words, they have difficulty attaching sound to symbol. They usually struggle with the alphabetic principle, which creates difficulties in word recognition, fluency, the ability to comprehend, and most specifically in decoding words. The major warning sign for a parent to look for is academic failure and inconsistency of academic performance across a variety of subject areas. Typically, children who have dyslexia or a specific learning disability are children who have good intelligence, above average intelligence, but their academic achievement is not commensurate with their intellectual potential. If you see difficulties with memory, organizational skills, difficulty with decoding or sounding out words, or spelling and coding words, difficulty with fluency in reading or reading comprehension, that is certainly a significant sign that a child might have dyslexia. It doesn't stop there. Children could also have difficulty with reasoning, with visual or auditory processing, and they might even have difficulty with mathematical calculations, as well as organizational skills. A learning disability can be thought of as a weakness in a sea of strength, because these children have many, many strengths, but the one area that affects is typically reading. If the child is struggling in reading, even at the first grade level, by the end of first grade, if that child is still not reading proficiently, that child is at risk for specific learning disabilities, along with dyslexia. The first and foremost step that a parent should take is to seek an evaluation. It is called the psychoeducational evaluation. So the examiner would measure not just academic achievement, but also the cognitive processing of children and the intellectual capacity of the child. If a child goes undiagnosed, the result is devastating, both academically, socially, emotionally, and psychologically. If a child with dyslexia does not receive treatment, academic progress of this child is dismal and poor. We know, and it's safe to say, and research tells us, that if a child does not read proficiently by the end of third grade, there is little hope for them to become successful readers later on, and they run the risk of high school dropouts. The only treatment that really works for these children is called direct, systematic, explicit instruction. And children who suffer from dyslexia need a multisensory approach to learning, which has to be research-based, such as the Orton-Gillingham method of reading. Learning disabilities and dyslexia in the United States is very prevalent. There are 2.4 million children across this country who suffer with learning disabilities and dyslexia. 80% of those children with a specific learning disability are dyslexic. 15% of the total school population have learning disabilities. And 50% of children who are classified in special education are children with learning disabilities. Typically, children with learning disabilities have comorbidity or a coexistent of ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, with or without hyperactivity. The most basic neurological process to understanding all of learning is paying attention. you can't pay attention, you can't learn. Many of these children have memory deficits as well as attentional issues to some degree or another. Schools do provide help for children. There is a process to getting a child classified and placed in special education. We know, and research tells us, that the best approach to the remediation of dyslexia or learning disabilities is one-to-one. So in the school setting, typically these children are seen in a small group as opposed to a private practice where a child receives one-to-one remediation. Children with learning disabilities have average to above average intelligence. It's not an issue of intelligence or intellectual capacity. It's an issue of processing information. Children with learning disabilities have difficulty when the brain has to interpret, store, retrieve, or respond to information in one or more of the sensory modalities. Typically, these children have issues with visual processing, auditory processing, intersensory integration, and most importantly, memory, short-term and long-term memory. Executive functioning is also a problem for many of these children who have difficulty with strategizing, planning ahead, managing time. I offer a variety of services in my practice. I administer psychoeducational evaluations to diagnose for learning disabilities of dyslexia. I also provide follow-up treatment, which is called remediation, on a one-to-one basis to remediate the disability and bring the child along and reach grade level potential. The most important piece to all of this is the remediation, because remediation does make a difference. It can get your child to read on grade level and to function academically very successfully. I also offer consultations for those parents who may not be sure that they want to proceed with an evaluation at this point in time. So I help them to understand learning and to take a look at the profile of the child academically speaking. And lastly, I do offer advocacy. There are those parents who come to me who have their child classified but might need help with rewriting or writing the IEP, which is an individual education plan, or with writing a 504 plan, which is a plan for children who have a learning disability but need modifications or accommodations in the classroom. The treatment that benefits these children, first of all, should be one-to-one, intensive remediation. It has to be direct, explicit, and systematic, and must target the 5 areas of reading, with a special emphasis on phonemic awareness. The practice of research-based strategies is crucial in making the difference of getting a child to read. A child with a learning disability can be very successful in school. The key is early diagnosis and treatment. Children with learning disabilities, of course, can attend college, graduate school. I've had many students who have attended Yale University, Harvard University, who when they first came to me could not read. So yes, there is life after dyslexia.